Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to yield 5 minutes to my friend from New York, the gentlelady, Ms. McCarthy.
Gentleman from New York, 5 minutes.
And I thank you for yielding. Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of House Concurrent Resolution 63. Despite the brave efforts of our troops, the situation in Iraq continues to deteriorate. Our troops have gone above and beyond the call of duty. Unfortunately, they are caught in the middle of sectarian violence. From the onset of the conflict, there has been mismanagement and mishandling from this administration. The administration was not prepared for the violence following the removal of Saddam Hussein. In addition, the previous Congress did not do its job. The 110th Congress held the first oversight hearing since the invasion in 2003. That's 4 years without a congressional oversight. I've heard, so many speeches here saying that we support the troops. I think every single member supports the troop. Yet all those years that we were hearing from the families and from our soldiers themselves saying they didn't have the equipment, they didn't have certainly the equipment to keep them safe, where were we? Where were we as members to making sure that our military had the best equipment? Since January, we've had 52 oversight hearings in Iraq. That turns out that nearly $12 billion from the American taxpayers have not been accounted for. That's $12 billion that could have been spent on our equipment to protect our troops. Our troops deserve better. The President explained his new plan for Iraq last week. Again, I hear that, we must stand by the President. Well, I was one that stood by the President. I voted with the President. I voted for every appropriation for the President. And now he's doing the same thing. It's not working. It hasn't worked. It's time for a new plan. He called for an increase of 20,000 more troops in Iraq. Unfortunately, I'm afraid that this is a little bit too late. We needed hundreds of thousands of troops in the beginning. That's when our generals asked for those troops, and they were denied. The truth of the matter is we did this war on the cheap. We didn't do it right in the beginning, and now we're all paying the consequences. Throughout the conflicts, our troop levels have changed. We have sent more troops in when our generals called for them. Then they were made smaller. This is no fault of our troops. The exact numbers do not claim the situation. I do not believe that putting more of our brave men and women in harm's way is the solution to this conflict. President Bush emphasized his intentions of placing more authority and responsibility on the Iraqi government. Well, it's about time. We have spent a lot of money to train the police officers, to train their military, and yet they are not standing up for their own country. Prime Minister Malki has not proven that he can stop the violence that is going on in his country. That should not mean that our troops should there. Our troops are trained for a war, not to settle political differences in that country. He has failed to bring equal representations of the Sunnis and the Shiites into the Iraqi government. This shortfall has fueled sectarian violence, putting our troops in greater harm. Poor planning by civilian leaders within the administration has placed our brave men and women in harm's way. Our troops have gone above and beyond the call of duty. They have served our country bravely and honorably, and we all know that. Many of these troops have served their full tours of duty in Iraq, and they have left behind family and friends to defend this great nation. More than 3,000 of our men and women have made the ultimate sacrifice, and not one of them, in my opinion, has died in vain. Because they were doing their duty, we sent them there, and they have lived up to that. And thousands more have suffered debilitating injuries. It's time to shift the burden of this conflict to the Iraqis themselves. We have a responsibility in Congress to make sure that our troops aren't put in harm's way. President Bush has made his decisions without consulting through experts and retired generals. Where was all the information that we needed years ago as far as bringing the experts, knowing what the culture was in the Middle East? That is something that we still are not grasping here. Decisions have not been clearly thought out, and our troops have paid the price. And after much thought, I have come to the conclusion that a phased redeployment of our troops is the best option. No one is really talking about Afghanistan either. When we started, we were winning in Afghanistan. When we took those troops out of Afghanistan, we started seeing the insurgents coming in. We can put our troops along the borders. We can stop the insurgents coming into Iraq while the Iraqi government tries to solve their own problems. We can go back into Afghanistan and make sure that we shore up that country so more insurgents and military equipment are not coming from that country. We must show the American people and our allies, by the way, who are leaving. They are not supporting us. It's not just Democrats and a lot of our Republican colleagues that feel that we should get out. Our strategy has been wrong. It's time to work together, and I'm hoping after all of these debates, when we come back from our break, we can actually go to our committees and come up with a way to solve these problems, not only for America, but for the world. With that, I yield back the balance of my time.